When we were born into a collectivist totalitarian system. The mother that parentifies the child, the dysfunctional family role. We were created to serve her needs, not to have our individual needs met. We were created, just like God created mankind, to serve, to love her, to love God, to be a source of power and narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is love, appreciation, admiration, okay, to be worshipped by mankind, by her child, to make her look good. To be the perfect source of love. She shaped us into the perfect source of love. And just like God was unhappy with his creation, who turned out to be free-willed, willful, rebellious, and needy, sinful, evil, these are things that makes the mother hate us. So that's what God is. It's the genocidal maniac, the psychopath God that tortures you in hell for being rebellious and free-willed. Well, that's what mother does. She neglects us and abandons us and leaves us all alone to be tortured. In fact, all night long. And what happens to torture victims, complex PTSD obviously, when you're held captive for a prolonged period of time, where you can't escape and you're tortured and your needs are not met, that's what torture is. And the majority of torture and the most effective forms of torture are emotional torture, not physical. Usually the physical torture is used to emotionally torture the other prisoners. When they witness someone being physically tortured, that emotionally tortures them. It's just like if you have a sibling who's being abused by the parent, that's called witnessing, which is a very severe form of childhood trauma that causes complex PTSD. And of course, if you know anything about complex PTSD, it's in the ICD-11, but it's not in the DSM. And if it was, it would replace all personality disorders, because at the core of all personality disorders is complex PTSD, which would reduce the DSM to a pamphlet, which it's now about the size of the Bible. So we've all been tortured in childhood because domesticating an animal is torture. Civilizing a child is torture, because you are depriving that child of its innate instinctual needs. The modern mother cannot provide the instinctual needs for the child's brain development. And civilization requires us to disconnect from our true instinctual primate nature to meet the needs of the collective. So that's what complex PTSD is a pathology of synaptogenesis, the formation of synapses in the brain, connections in the brain. So this is thousands of years of apathy of the brain, which occurs in any domesticated animal. It's being transmitted from mother to child. And it's called domestication syndrome, or at least that's what I call it, because what else are you going to call it? Generally, when we talk about domestication syndrome, scientists are talking about the loss of smell that dogs have versus wolves, or a smaller snout, which humans do have compared to chimpanzees, a thinner jaw and smaller teeth and things like that, smaller brain. For instance, a domesticated pig has 35% less brain volume than a wild boar. That has occurred in the last 9,000 years. And that's the same amount of time that humans have been domesticated. And human brain has reduced in brain volume by 15% compared to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. This is domestication syndrome. This is complex PTSD. If you look at a brain scan, what you're seeing is complex PTSD in the average person. Three primate networks that we inherited from our ancestors, they are offline. Well, that's disconnected from your instincts, and that's what you have to do to become civilized, to become a roboticized automaton that has been groomed to be a slave. You're parentified by the mother to be her source of power and narcissistic supply. Getting into the matrix here, a source of power created to be a slave. We're groomed to be slaves. Then we're sent to the state institution called the educational system, which indoctrinates us to be a slave to corporations, to the state, to the corporate state. You see, there is only the corporate state. The government is just corporations parading as civil servants through the revolving door. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's a fact, and we all know it. And all they do is create legislation that benefits the corporations and makes them rich and siphons off all the wealth from the American public and gives it to the elites. The educational system is designed to indoctrinate us, to make us believe that we live in a democracy. This is a dream world. This is the Matrix, the dream world, you know. And that we're free. We're a free country. But we're not free. We're groomed to be slaves. We're indoctrinated to be slaves by this corporate state, totalitarian, human trafficking, cult, capitalist cult, and we call it inverted totalitarianism, because we pretend to be a democracy. And that's the truth. And you need to wake up. And it's a nightmare. And I'm sorry that you have to let go of your fantasy world of freedom and democracy. But you are a slave. You're sending your children to a state institution to be indoctrinated and enslaved. So what's the cure for this complex PTSD, this domestication syndrome? Well, it would be the opposite of collectivism, individualism. Individualism means thinking for yourself, thinking freely, and meeting your own individual needs. What are our individual needs that have not been met? Freedom, autonomy, adventure, exploration. These are things that children need in order to develop, that they're being deprived of. Unconditional love, acceptance and approval. Well, we don't receive unconditional love in this society. We receive conditional love. And conditional love isn't love. It's conditioning. It's manipulation. It's control. What is money? Upon the dollar bill, you see the pyramid, the all-seeing eye of God, and the inscription above says, He favors our work. So that's conditional love that you're given when your work is favored. When your work is met with approval, you have to earn it. Just like you have to earn love from your parents by being a source of narcissistic supply. You have to earn conditional love from the state, from the corporate state, by meeting its needs and sacrificing your own. Fight Club. It's only when you've given up everything that you're free to do anything. Hitting bottom isn't a seminar. It isn't a retreat. You have to give up everything. You have to let all your corporate, cult, consumer identity go. You have to become a primate. You have to meet your needs. You have to get out of the building, Neo. You have to leave the corporation.